Hi guys. So this is at a really odd angle. Can I? There we go. There we go. Okay, here we go. Math is factual and consistent, and no matter how many times you add 2 plus 2, you will always get 4, and it was so simple that we wanted to learn more, but once you're past that is where people start to squirm because it gets tricky, and we all know that algebra can be finicky, but then we get to geometry and we learn that everything can be explained. Which brings me to my first question: would a triangle still be a triangle by any other name? And in the middle of everything that we can prove, we have this thing called infinity, and in that space is where we can start to define things like less than and greater than and maybe even the Trinity. But what if a triangle's only claim to fame was its unique divinity? Triangles have 3 different parts and they all have a purpose, and without the others, each one just seems worthless, but together they make something like greatness, which brings me to number 3. How do you describe greatness? Is it a measure of fullness, a lack of emptiness, or what about busyness? Does it have something to do with your cleverness? Greatness is a characteristic that never seems to be simplistic, and it's complex, and it often only works with people that choose to flex. And maybe the next thing I need to ask is, how do you become great? If you choose to wait, the world passes you by. See, true greatness takes fate and chooses not to abdicate. In the midst of the world, they decide to emulate the only one who successfully walked the path straight. So, are you practicing patience? They say you have to fall to fly, so maybe it was a blessing the day that wise guy used an apple to foster our demise. It was that fateful day when the wholeness of the world began to decay, and what was once perfection was bound to destruction. The only solution was a very intense form of construction, and despite the commotion, the plan was set into motion, all because of that one emotion. So we see it all take shape through his devotion. But why would anyone want to save a world drowning in an ocean? Authentic in nature, adaptation chipped away at its genuine essence, so we dwell in the present with our empty presence, waiting to receive the wholeness of his presence. And thankfully for us, he was an innovator, never a procrastinator, and to our own advantage, a peacemaker. But although he wore many hats, he was always greater. And maybe that's why triangles are nifty, because his provision is never shifty. It's a triple play, a 3-in-1, Father, Spirit, Holy Son. He set our minds above, he gave our spirits a shove, and he left us with peace and hope represented by a dove. He transferred us from death to life, leaving our hearts hostile at best. Submission became our greatest test. We sought rest, but what we found was something that had the power to drown, and it took our wounds and it bound. It was more than fate. It was at its origin great. And there can be no debate, but the hater's gonna hate. We found the greatest of these, and some may call it a tease, but what you don't know is that it never leaves. We found love, and love is vaster than we could imagine, and it captivates faster than we could fathom, and it starts small like an atom, but it grows with enthusiasm. And have you ever thought about how when you break a triangle apart, it makes a greater than symbol? If we face it, love highly resembles greatness, and I think it's safe to say that at the end of every day, love is greater than. But love is so much more than just greatness. It's hard to explain. It's grace and peace and hope and restoration. It's risky but rewarding, and it's terrifying all while being terrific. It's inviting and yet still intimidating, because love is patient. Love is scary but safe, and it's firm all while being free, and it's reckless, and sometimes it's responsible. But love is kind. And love is hard to describe. It's mercy and joy and redemption and sacrifice. It's hard, but it's never haughty, and it's flying all while it feels like you're falling. It's broken and yet still beautiful. Love does not envy. Love is just without being justified, and it's open without being overwhelming, and it's stretching but it's still sure. It's never inconvenient, but instead it's an investment, because love does not boast. Love is hard to nail down. It's ever-changing and steady. It's abundance and truth. It's desire and deliverance. It's contagious and it's never competitive. It's screaming, all while being silent, because love is not rude. Love is making cookies when it snows and giving them to your neighbors. It's writing Christmas cards to the elderly. It's simple but sophisticated. It's giving yourself away and yet still growing. Love is not self-seeking. Love is faithful and it's never fake. It's pandemonium in the midst of peace. It's intimate and yet still innovative, because love is not easily angered. Love is familiar, like rainy days with Christmas lights and your favorite book. It's like watching your favorite movie again and again and again, because it never gets old. It's repetitive but resilient. Love keeps no record of wrong. Love is tenacious but tender, and it's sometimes rash, but it's never rational, and it's unique all while being usual. It's worn, but it's also really welcoming, because love rejoices in truth. And love is something that we think we can comprehend, but that we'll never fully come to understand, because love is the most that you'll ever feel and the least that you deserve. But love never fails.